It's a cold and rainy night in the walled city of Deep in the heart of medieval Spain. The streets are quiet, the stone buildings damp with rain, and the watchmen stand guard under the stormy skies, completely unaware that history is about to change forever. Beneath the cover of darkness, an army of Christian soldiers quietly approaches the city. Before the sun rises, they launch a surprise attack, and in a single night, they seize control. Falls. After centuries of Muslim rule, the city is now under Christian hands. And it wasn't the only one. All across the Iberian Peninsula, one Muslim city after another was falling to the expanding Christian kingdoms. But among all the conquests, one city stood firm. Granada. It remained unconquered, shielded not just by geography but by brilliance both architectural and strategic. For over 200 years, Granada defied the tide of conquest, thanks in large part to its elevated location and the monumental Alhambra Palace that dominated its skyline. The Alhambra wasn't just a fortress, it was a symbol of power, innovation, and unmatched elegance. Even today, it stands as one of the most breathtaking architectural masterpieces in the world. As you walk through its intricately decorated halls, under archways carved with geometric detail, and across courtyards filled with the scent of orange blossoms, something else begins to stand out. Something quiet, something constant, the sound of water, running, flowing, whispering. It's everywhere. Beneath the beauty of the palace lies something even more impressive, a sophisticated water system that brought life, comfort, and technology to this medieval marvel. This is the story of the Alhambra's water system, one of the most advanced hydraulic networks ever created in the medieval world. Winding its way through the palace is a brilliant network of channels, pools, fountains, and underground pipes. It carried fresh water to thermal baths, royal gardens, and stunning decorative courtyards. It created fountains that could tell time, heated the floors, cooled the air, and helped sustain nature in one of the hottest regions of Spain. And most incredibly, it still works today. To understand how this system came to be, we must go back to its origin. When the ruler of Granada commissioned the Alhambra Palace, the engineers faced one enormous problem. The palace was built on a steep hill, nearly 200 meters above the nearest water source, the Darro River. Getting water up to the palace would require a feat of engineering few had ever attempted before. The solution? They followed the river 6 kilometers upstream, to a point that sat higher than the palace itself. There, they carefully dammed the river and began redirecting part of its flow through a new man-made channel. This channel was known as the Royal Canal, or Asakio Reel. From its origin point, the canal followed a meticulously calculated route through rocky terrain, designed to maintain a very shallow but consistent slope. Too steep, and the water would rush too fast. Too flat, and it would stop flowing altogether. It had to be just right. After an immense amount of digging, measuring, and adjusting, the canal reached the outskirts of the palace. Water now flowed from the mountains to the hilltop fortress, but this was just the beginning. The architects of the Alhambra had grand visions. They imagined water not just for drinking or washing, but for display, for relaxation, for art. They wanted showers, underfloor heating, elegant fountains that could shoot out jets of water, and even clocks powered entirely by water pressure. But there was a problem. The natural flow of the Royal Canal didn't generate enough pressure for these features. The water had made it to the palace, but now it needed to be lifted even higher. To solve this, the engineers built a secondary system. Just above the palace grounds, they carved out a large reservoir, raised storage pool capable of holding around 400 cubic meters of water. From the canal, water flowed underground into a deep well beneath this reservoir, about 60 meters below. At the top of the well, they installed a water wheel with attached buckets. Powered by animals, often donkeys or mules, the wheel would rotate and lift the water up from the well into the raised pool. This ingenious solution pressurized the system. By storing water above the palace, gravity could now be used to deliver water wherever it was needed, and at the pressure necessary to power fountains, baths, and more. The pool also served another purpose. It acted as a backup reservoir during times of drought, ensuring the palace always had water. From the reservoir, the water passed over an aqueduct and entered the palace grounds. Inside, it was split into an intricate network of channels. These channels were designed with precision, carrying just the right amount of water to every section of the palace. Some flowed gently into pools and fountains in courtyards. Others traveled underground to private baths and service areas. The entire layout was balanced mathematically and aesthetically to ensure harmony. At the heart of this system sat the Lion Fountain, built in the 14th century. It's one of the palace's most iconic features, a large marble bowl supported by 12 lion sculptures, each one capable of spouting water. But this was more than just decoration. The fountain was also a water clock. Inside the central bowl were 12 holes placed at different heights, each connected by an internal pipe to one of the lions. A steady trickle of water would slowly fill the bowl. As the water level rose, it would reach the first hole, triggering the first lion to spout. Then, one by one, hour by hour, the rest would activate in sequence until midday, when all 12 were flowing. Then, like clockwork, the entire system would reset. This was possible thanks to a clever siphon mechanism inside the bowl. As the water reached the top of the siphon, it began to drain rapidly, pulling the rest of the water down through the outlet. The bowl emptied, and the clock started again. This simple yet brilliant method allowed medieval engineers to create a reliable timekeeping device powered entirely by water. But the magic didn't stop there. As the water flowed through the palace, it passed into yet another technological marvel: the royal thermal baths. These were not just functional, they were luxurious, designed for relaxation and diplomacy. The bathhouse featured cold plunge pools, hot soaking rooms, and a steam room. The water was first heated in a copper boiler located underground and heated with firewood. The hot water was then piped to fountains, showers, and even under the floor. For underfloor heating, steam was channeled beneath marble tiles in the hot rooms. As the steam rose, it was guided through stone pillars and small vents into the bathing chambers. The ceiling above featured star-shaped skylights, which could be opened or closed to regulate the level of steam. This clever combination of heating and ventilation made the bathhouse comfortable and efficient even by modern standards, and all the while the flowing water served another purpose: cooling. Summers in Granada are scorching, but as warm air passed over the many pools, fountains, and channels, the water would evaporate, cooling the surrounding air through a natural process. This turned the Alhambra into a calm, breezy oasis, even during the hottest days of the year. As the water made its way through the palace, it eventually reached the western sector, where the soldiers and guards were housed. This section sat slightly higher than the rest of the complex. To raise water this final 6 meters, engineers turned to a different solution, one that didn't rely on animals or wheels. Instead, they used something extraordinary: a gravity-powered water lifter. This device worked using air pressure and clever physics. Water from the main system flowed into a top container with a hole leading to another container below. As the water fell, it created a whirlpool, which in turn created a low-pressure zone that sucked air downward. The air and water would mix, forming bubbly, lighter water that traveled up a thin pipe. Since it was lighter than the regular water in the opposite pipe, it could rise higher. This allowed engineers to raise water without pumps, wheels, or animals, just careful design and the power of physics. It's hard to believe, but many of these systems are still functional today, more than 600 years later. The engineers of the Alhambra created something timeless, not just in beauty, but in design, utility, and innovation. From cooling and heating to fountains and timekeeping, they harnessed nature and physics to bring luxury, comfort, and awe to the very top of a hill in Granada. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.